All right, good morning. We are live. Good morning. I've called the meeting to order. We will take a roll call.
Member Chaplin.
Here.
Member Covert. Here. Member Dessart.
Here.
Member DeCiani.
Here.
Member Eckhoff. Member Elliott.
Here.
Member Hart.
Here.
Member Healy. Member Krajewski. Member Larson.
Here.
Member Noonan. Here. Member Ozad.
Here.
Member Pachowski. Member Renahan.
Here.
Member Rutledge. Here. Member Selman.
Here.
Statutory. And Member Zay.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum and we have a physical quorum, so we do not have to go through the task of roll call votes on every item, which is good. Thank you all for being here. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? I have no public comment. All right, all of our public comments, and there will be plenty, will be saved for the county board meeting. So we'll look forward to that. Under chairman's remarks, we're continuing the process of going through our budgets to talk about the various issues that we have to address. Today, we have the clerk's office and the treasurer's office. So obviously I ask that you give them your full attention and be prepared with whatever questions you may have. And with that, I will move on to entertaining a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Finance Committee of July 14, 2020.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Finance Committee special call Tuesday, July 28, 2020 meeting minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on those? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. On to procurement requisitions under finance.
Mr. Chairman, I move on FIR 444-20 budget transfers.
Oh, sorry, I skipped budget transfers. You're right. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second on budget transfers. Any discussion as to the budget transfers? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Those are approved. Now on to procurement requisitions under finance.
Mr. Chairman, I move to combine and approve items 1 and 2 on the finance agenda.
All right, we have a motion and a second to combine and approve the two items under finance. Any discussion as to either of them? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those are approved. Health and Human Services, Chairman DeCiani. Or I mean, where are we on that? Vice Chairman.
I'll take it. I move to combine and approve items B1 through 8 on the HHS agenda. They're all DuPage County Board, Community Services and Health DuPage Care Center items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to combine and approve agenda items 1 through 9 under Health and Human Services. Is there any discussion as to any of these items?
Sorry, is it 1 through 8 or 1 through 9?
I asked for 1 through 8. I was going to take 9.
1 through 8. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Member Chaplin, second. Any discussion as to items 1 through 8? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And finally, I move on HHSR 437-20 resolution on LIHEAP in the amount of $2.542328 million.
Second.
We have the last one. We have a motion and a second on the LIHEAP. Any discussion? Getting dizzy watching Member DeCiani's picture spin here. Any discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. On to Judicial and Public Safety, Chairman Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of JPS agenda items 1 through 5. Combine and approve.
We have a motion and a second to combine and approve items 1 through 5 under Judicial and Public Safety. Any discussion as to any of these items? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Those are approved. Public Works Chairman Healy's not here. Vice Chairman Noonan.
Mr. Chairman, I move to combine and approve agenda items D1 through 5 under Public Works.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to combine and approve agenda items 1 through 5 under Public Works. Any discussion as to any of them? Member Dessart.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just had a question regarding this item and also stormwater items, E1 and 2. Question, educate me, rather than hire out all of these professional services on contracts, would there be a cost savings to hire a person in-house, on staff and on call?
I don't know if you want to address that, Member Noonan, and Nick can probably address that, but I know in many discussions we've had at Public Works, they look at that issue all the time to try to determine if the combined benefits and costs and so forth of bringing somebody in-house would provide savings as opposed to contracting the work, because obviously there are benefits and detriments to doing that, and it's a very valid question. Nick, I don't know if you're on the line and want to comment any further with respect to, oh, there you are. He's here. Push the button on there.
Member Desart, we're talking about item number 1 with regarding Robinson Engineering. But overall, I can tell you that when we hire an engineering company, a lot of these are one-off type of contracts that we need specialized expertise. We don't have enough of them to really warrant having a full-time person, because when we hire a firm, we're hiring the entire firm, all of their expertise, mechanical engineering, we have structural, everything in-house. And so it really doesn't make sense to hire one person. We don't have that full slate of expertise. Now,
Yeah, it was more of a general question, Nick, because I was talking about this item, and also I noticed over on stormwater items E1 and E2 also called for professional engineering services to be contracted out. So it's kind of a general question.
absolutely, and overall, I mean, you're absolutely right. We do have engineers on staff. I know, like DOT, they have civil engineers, they do resident engineering in-house when they can. But when there's specialized expertise, that's why we hire the outside firm. So it definitely is financially the right decision to hire an outside firm when you do only one of these inspections every 4 or 5 years to have that expertise outside.
And Member Zay, as chairman of Stormwater, had a comment on the stormwater issues, although we're a little ahead in the agenda,
Yeah,
but it's the same question.
Yeah, just to go ahead. I mean, yeah, we look at that all the time. We're actually down 5 headcount right now in engineers and stormwater. So that's about $400,000 we're saving. So we do not have the people to do all of these as it comes through. Our staff is stretched as it is, doing what we can do. But we do look at it every year, and we have actually cut down on the number of engineering firms that we hire. But again, as Mr. Cottonmeyer said, these people are specialized and are helping us out on special projects usually.
So with regard to Public Works item D1, you're saying that one inspection every 4 years, but we're voting to give a contract not to exceed $75,000. So is that one inspection at $75,000?
It's an on-call. So what they do is they go out there, they inspect all of our towers and they look at all of our water containment systems to make sure they're safe, effective, and then develop the specs for it. But to your point, you bring up a great point. A good example of where we do combine it, I know stormwater, all of the different departments have natural area management, and stormwater does all of our management for all the different departments. So where we can do that, where we can hire a person, do it in-house, we absolutely do when it makes sense financially. But you raise a great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on any of these items under Public Works? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go to
Aye.
Stormwater, Chairman Zay. All right, we have a motion and a second to combine and approve those 2 items. Any discussion as to either of these?
We just can't hear Jim. If he could turn his microphone on.
Sorry. I move to combine and approve stormwater items E1 and 2.
Second.
All right, again, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion as to either of those? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. On to technology, Chairman Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to combine and approve items 1 through 4 under technology.
Do we have a second? All right. Motion and a second to.
Wait, oh, hang on 1 second, please. I can't find it now.
Is there one you want to take out of there?
I did. I wanted to take is it not there? Why can't I find it now? My glasses are not working.
Apparently not on there if that's.
Oh, it's not on here. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm fine then.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to combine and approve agenda items 1 through 4 under technology. Any discussion as to any of these items? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 On to transportation, Chairman Pachowski. And approve them.
Microphone.
Can't hear him.
Move to combine and approve agenda items G1 through 6 under transportation. Sorry.
All right, we have a motion and a second to combine and approve agenda items 1 through 6 under transportation. Any discussion as to any of these items? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Approved. Finance resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Combine and approve items A through G. These are all acceptance and appropriations,
Various grants.
various grants.
Second.
On the grants?
Yeah.
Which one do you want? Here, now.
I'm sorry, we're having a little trouble hearing.
Okay, well, I'll withdraw, I'll remove F and we'll do items A through E and G, and we'll remove F.
So we have a motion to combine and approve A through E and G. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to combine and approve those items. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Those are approved.
Mr. Chairman, move on FIR 43020, acceptance appropriation adult redeploy Illinois program grant, the amount of $350,268.
Second.
Gotcha. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Show member Covert leaving the room. Any discussion on this particular item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I move on FIR 23019, amendment to FIR 23019 holiday schedule, COVID item.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion? Member Desart.
Thank you. I just wondered why this is listed, the holiday schedule for the employees is listed as a COVID item.
Well, this is passed by the state. This is election day. So this is because of COVID specifically that now this is a state holiday.
Excellent. Thank you.
And it's possible, I suppose, that we may be able to recoup some of the cost of having that day off and the staffing that's required for that as a COVID item under the CARES Act.
Good.
Any further discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
Mr. Chair, move on FIR 44120, approval amendment of agreement with Choose DuPage to administer DuPage County COVID Small Business Relief Fund.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. This is to allow a wider scope and to remove the restriction on companies that receive PPP funds, as was discussed in our special call meeting. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is approved.
Mr. Chair, move on FIR 44220, placing names on payroll.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved.
Mr. Chairman, move on FIR 445-20, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and various fire protection districts for reimbursement of eligible COVID expenses.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, this is an item we discussed in our special call on the CARES Act, and we were able to work out an agreement with the fire districts that allows us to support them in their ongoing efforts. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That is approved.
Mr. Chair, move on FIR 448-20, correction of Scribner's error in U.S. Census data for resolution FIR 420-20, COVID.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is approved.
Mr. Chair, move on FIR 451-20, ratification of emerging procurement of goods and services. COVID.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved.
Mr. Chair, move on FIR 452-20, recommendation approval of a payment to DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Second.
Amount of $85,761.24.
And we have a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion? Seeing, Member Renahan.
Beth Marquetti, I see that you're on the line. Can you just flesh this out just ever so slightly? We didn't have a chance to talk, but just very quickly. Is she there?
Who was that you asked? I'm sorry, I didn't catch
Beth
that.
Markey.
I just want to see if she could,
Can you hear me now?
yes, thank you.
Wasn't granted permission. Yes, of course. So we are funded by state hotel tax. The grant has to be matched. And so due to COVID, our grant does not allow us to work from home. So a lot of these expenses were to get our staff being able to expand the bandwidth of our IT services, make sure that we were in compliance with any legal issues, to help continue to support our membership through video. So all of these expenses were above and beyond what we normally would have. So they are definitely COVID related, and this will help us continue to move forward to promote DuPage County. I think it was great to have a meeting last week with several people of the board to learn a little bit more about what the Bureau does. We had a Stronger Together video that we did from home. We had some expenses related to that. Obviously, we're back in our office. We do have our office is open to the public if people wanted to get guides. So we're following protocol and only allowing, outside the door. So we've had to make a lot of adjustments. So all of those have receipts, and that's what we're requesting. So I appreciate the consideration of the board.
I appreciate your explanation. Thanks, Beth.
Yep, of course.
Thank you, Member Covert.
Thank you, Beth, for all that you do. I just had a really quick question. Does your organization or does the Visitors Bureau, have they received any help from the federal government with the PPE or any relief from the federal government for COVID-related items?
Beth, are you still there?
She's on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
We have applied for many SBA loans, federal CARES relief funds. To date, PPP is not allowed for 501c6s, and it was again stalled in Congress this past weekend. So to date, we are not getting any PPP or aid in that regards.
So the only people that are helping are us. All right, any further discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move on FIR 453-20, approval of issuance of payments for small business independent contractors.
Second.
Motion and second in this item. This is our latest, latest tranche of payments to the Small Business Relief Program. Love our little meetings where we get to review applications. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved.
Chairman, move on FIR 454-20, recommendation approval payment to ETSB on $817.30. Sean, I think you're shorting your guys. They just got 85,000.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second on this item. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
You opposed? Glad we got through that one. I was hoping we weren't going to have a long discussion on the $817. Informational.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try to receive and place on file A, County Board, B, payment of claims, appointments, and E, grant proposal notifications. I'm sure there'll be discussion at the County Board.
All right, we have a motion and a second to combine and approve these items as informational to receive and place on file. Do we have any discussion on the receipt and placing on file of these items at this point? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. Thank you. All right, we are on to our budget presentations, and we will begin with the clerk's office. Clerk is on the way here. Okay. Didn't expect us to be efficient. All right. Treasurer's office. Anybody here from the treasurer's?
No, they were second.
Yeah, let's take a brief recess. Let's come back at 8:30 and hopefully we'll... Oh, wait, check that.
I unmuted mine.
Treasurer Henry, are you prepared to give the presentation?
Yes, I am.
All right, thank you.
I sent the presentation out to all the board members on Friday. And so I hope everyone's had a chance to review it. And I'll just go, it's probably one of the least exciting budgets you'll see all year. We are proposing a budget that actually shows the revenue down 2.3% from penalties and NSF checks. We are trying to encourage people not to give us the bad checks, so we don't have the expenses of, we don't get the income from that. And our expenses are down 1.1%, and that are made up of four basic items. Our salaries are up $8,000, but we deleted a temporary salary and made someone who was part-time full-time, so there's no change in the head count, but the salary line itself increased $8,000. With professional services are down $4,000 because we don't need additional programming for bill production this year. Our printing is down $1,000 for moving in-house service for a previous job that we did out. And we're anticipating postage will be down about $20,000 for emailing more bills and less certified mailings going out. So those are the reasons for our change in our budget. This whole budget could change though, just so you'll know, because it's not final, depending on what happens with the tax sale. We may be required to move our tax sale to the next fiscal year instead of being in this year. So we will have some expenses moving and some income moving. You won't see as much, if it changes, you won't see as much penalty because the penalty coming in from the tax sale is about $600,000. And one of the things the state legislature did without talking to anybody was saying the tax sale should be later. And it looks like ours would be in January or February instead of November. So that will affect this budget and next year's budget, the current year and next year's budget both. So that's kind of what we're up against with the budget. I just thought I might point out a couple of little statistics for what they're worth. We do have people that spend a lot of time answering telephones, and we're looking forward to the new telephone system. We had, for example, in the month of May, we answered 13,716 calls coming through our 5900 line, which is a lot of people calling and wanting information both about the COVID, about their bills, why they were so high, all of those kinds of things. So we do a lot of time on the phone. In terms of the waivers, you might be curious to know how much we have still uncollected, but we anticipate getting most of that by September 1st, and it's $11 million. So that's not affecting our budget at all because that's not county money, only a portion of it is county money. So we anticipate that the county will receive all of their payments that they did last year, and payments are coming in pretty much on time. So the distributions to date have been right on the market for people, and they were concerned about it, but they're right on time. Penalties themselves are at this point for your general fund are $739,559.75. Those again will increase by September 1st. So I think we're going to be on target for your hitting your revenue for penalties, except for the tax sale. And I'm talking about the current budget, just so you're aware of that's happening. So I'd be glad to answer any questions about the budget if anybody has any.
All right, open up for discussion.
I wish it were more exciting.
Oh, let's see.
Go ahead, Member Chaplin, then Member.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation, Gwen. So I was just curious about the tax sale. And you said it may be that our legislators moved it to January or February. So do you think their thinking was to give people a chance to catch up on their tax bill before it goes to sale? Do you have any idea on why they did that?
Well, they really didn't talk to us about it, and they didn't really say, but I suspect that's what they're looking at, thinking of give people a little more time to pay it.
Okay,
but it causes us to be actually collecting two different years in the same year.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So how do you how is that going to impact your department then? Or
we'll be able to account for it. It'll take a little more work in the IT area, but we can do it.
Okay, and it's good to hear that, you know, we're going to be on target for collecting all of our property tax, and that, you know, our penalties are right where they should be. So yeah, so it looks like overall a good job by the treasurer's office. So thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Glenn, for the presentation. Just real quick, on the revenue, and it looks like it's doubling almost this year. What's the list?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
What's the list sales on our revenue? What are we selling? What's the computer list sales?
We all will sell during the tax sale a list of the accounts that we have outstanding, but we're selling less and less because we used to sell a lot of those, but we're selling less. We sell a small amount for people that are looking for the property that's on the tax sale. They want to go in and check it out, and we hope they will check out the property so they know what they're buying, but they pay for those lists.
Oh, because we'll probably have more go to tax sales. That way it's more revenue this coming year.
I'm sorry?
Is it because we're having more going to go to tax sale, the revenue's doubled for the proposed?
Yeah, we'll have, if we have 2 sales, we'll have double the revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said it's not a very exciting report. I think we're all glad to hear that it's not that exciting of a report. You did a great job forecasting for us. I know we were worried about a lot of contingencies and whether we're going to make those distributions, to the schools and that kind of thing. So I'm happy to hear that things have gone as well as they have. My question is on tax sales. When you have to sell properties, what are you seeing? I mean, we're worried about our businesses, we're worried about homeowners. What are you seeing coming in, or is it too early for you to say what would be?
It's too early to say, but just so you all understand, when we have a tax sale, we're not selling the property, we're only selling the taxes. And people have usually about 2.5 years to redeem it and pay it off and get that back. So it doesn't affect their credit. So we don't know yet what it'll be. We had been over the years working that number down, but I suspect it may be a little higher this year.
Okay, thank you, Treasurer Henry.
Any further questions or comments for the treasurer? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Treasurer. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to, I see our esteemed clerk is here, ready to give her presentation. So I would invite you to come up and present the clerk's office budget. Morning. You have to hit the button on the microphone. The little red mouth down on the.
Thank you. The county clerk's office has faced unprecedented challenges in 2020, and I'm proud to say that my staff has risen to meet those challenges. COVID-19 pandemic struck at one of the worst possible times for our office. The initial spread of the virus and public panic began to build through the 2 weeks of March leading to the primary on the 17th. And while those states with elections earlier in March dodged most impacts of the pandemic, and those states with later elections at least had some knowledge of what problems to expect, Illinois and the other states voting on March 17th were forced to respond with little warning and support. The situation was so dire that Ohio's governor made the last-minute decision to postpone that state's primary. Our election in DuPage County had to go as scheduled. In the days leading to the election day, we lost 17 polling places and 60% of our election judges. An emergency pay increase brought in new judges, some coming on board on the very morning of the election. When hand sanitizer couldn't be found anywhere, Deputy Clerk of Elections, Scott McKay, called the owner of Mineral Masters in West Chicago, who made a rush order. Scott drove to IKEA for cases of applicator bottles for the polling places, which were later filled by his wife and kids in the kitchen in their Wheaton home. The bipartisan retabulation and certification was completed on deadline despite the stay-at-home order and 10-person room limitation. And if that wasn't enough, March also happens to be the crucial month for the property tax extension process that provides the funding mechanism not only for, but also our schools, municipalities, and other units of government. DuPage County's antiquated mainframe property tax system presents unique challenges under the best of circumstances. Completing the crucial final checks and calculations for over 335 parcels in 377 taxing districts, while also implementing social distancing and remote work arrangements on the fly for an office that had no precedent for such processes, was a Herculean task. Between the election and property tax extensions, it is not an exaggeration to say the entire legitimacy and funding of government in DuPage County was riding on my team successfully carrying out their duties during the onslaught of a global pandemic. Nevertheless, staff of the county clerk's office demonstrated the courage, professionalism, and dedication I have had the privilege of observing every day since taking office. The election especially required a team effort, and as we continue the process of integrating the two offices following last year's merger of the county clerk's office and election commission, the March primary marked a significant milestone in that journey. On election day, almost all of the traditional clerk's office staff was redirected to assist in the election division. The rest of the staff filled in a variety of election roles ranging from answering phone calls from voters to delivering supplies to polling places to directing traffic on the parking garage roof as precinct results came back on election night. These redeployed full-time staff took on tasks that in past elections had been performed by temporary workers, saving the county thousands of dollars in labor costs. They also became acquainted with the process that will build from election to election, increasing efficiency and institutional knowledge. In the past, that required training large batches of new temporary workers every election cycle. The process of integration and cross-training between the two offices is continuing literally as we speak, as the vital records staff has stepped up to assist with processing the 65,000 vote by mail applications in addition to their normal duties. I want to take a moment to specifically highlight the additional efforts of my vital records team with regards to issuing marriage licenses during the COVID-19 crisis. The marriage license process is not one that lends itself easily to social distancing. In normal times, couples come into the office for marriage licenses as they please, at times accompanied by large groups of family members. At high traffic times, it is not uncommon for every available space at our counter to be occupied with a marrying couple, with additional customers waiting in the wings. By far, we have the most public traffic coming inside our office in this building. The challenges of performing marriage licenses during the pandemic are significant enough that the Cook County Clerk's Office shut its doors to the public entirely and did not resume providing most in-person services until last month. And DuPage County never stopped. Thanks to the extraordinary efforts of my staff, our office was able to design and implement an appointment scheduling process from scratch, limiting the number of people in the office at any one time and ensuring that those with immediately upcoming wedding dates were able to get married. And while this process was stressful and challenging for everyone involved, not only did my team manage to make sure everyone who wanted to get married in DuPage County had the opportunity to do so, they successfully handled the increased demand from customers who changed their wedding locations from Cook County due to the fact that we were open and they weren't. And while I am proud of the accomplishments of my office that I've just laid out for you, what I am most proud of is that we were able to do it all while keeping the health, safety, and welfare of the public as our highest priority. That we have been able to do so has been greatly facilitated by our partnership with the county board and its staff. And I want to specifically thank Chief Administrative Officer Nick Kottmeyer for all the assistance he has provided our office over the last 6 months. We've enjoyed the partnership with the county board by the Public Works Department and the Division of Transportation in producing and distributing sanitation supplies to every polling place in DuPage County the morning of the election. This assistance was vital in ensuring the safe and successful administration of the election, and I'm truly grateful to everyone involved. Another example is the IT department, which provided immediate remote support during the stay-at-home order. We couldn't have done our jobs well without them. Facilities management has furnished us with an abundance of plexiglass shields, signage, and deep cleaning. The list goes on. I must add that the fairgrounds were available as a central voting center for voters whose polling places were shut down at the last minute. The large open facility located near our office served as the ideal backup location, and we're pleased that the fairgrounds again will be used in the 2020 election for early voting and as a newly mandated central voting center. In turn, I'm honored our office was able to assist our community in an unexpected way. In March, Member Ozog placed me in contact with Chief of Police Phil Norton of our hometown, Glen Ellen, who was seeking a list of senior and elderly residents for officers to conduct wellness checks. Our office, as it happens, had the most up-to-date information on residents within our database. We sent the information right over to Chief Norton, and then word got out, and we were able to fulfill the same request for Lombard, Burridge, Addison, Darien, Hanover Park, Wheaton, Glendale Heights, Elmhurst, and our DuPage County Sheriff. I am grateful to this board for the bipartisan support it has shown for providing supplemental election funding from the county's CARES Act allocation. The board's support for up to $3.5 million in additional funding for election expenses has allowed our office to move forward with additional equipment purchases to accommodate the expected increase in vote by mail, to secure additional early voting locations, and to mail postage paid vote by mail applications to every voter in DuPage County. Together, we are going above and beyond the mandate of Illinois SB 1863 with the bipartisan backing of this board to do everything in our power to ensure equal access to all voters. The total revenue the clerk's office contributed to the general fund so far this fiscal year is $522,000, mostly from vital records. We received an IVRS grant of $166,000 from the ISBOE for voter registration database maintenance. A Help America Vote Act cybersecurity grant of $139,000 covered new Windows 10 desktops for the entire election division, a camera system, a third-party risk assessment, and in-depth security training for our IT staff member. Protecting our system also protects the county. The CloudStrike and firewall protection installed by the county's IT department for firewalls for the entire county government also qualified for reimbursement under this grant. It is with the goal of continuing a productive partnership with the board on behalf of the residents of DuPage County that I present our office's budget request for fiscal year 2021. In the election realm specifically, this is a budget year like no other due to the uncertainty related to the degree that election administration requirements will continue to be impacted by COVID-19, along with the availability or lack thereof of additional funding from the state and federal governments. While consolidated election years feature reduced variable costs than presidential election years due to the lower voter turnout, it seems likely that COVID-19 mitigation will require additional costs above and beyond those required under normal circumstances. The budget request for elections reflects this reality, offering our best current estimate of what those costs might be, with the caveat that circumstances have changed dramatically over the past 6 months and will likely continue to change in the coming months. The 2021 budget request comes in approximately $800,000 below the approved fiscal year 2020 budget, for a decrease of 13.6%. But when you add in an additional $3.5 million for potential CARES Act expenditures, the budget request represents approximately a 46% decrease from total anticipated fiscal year 2020 election spending. This budget proposal does not include a request for funding for a replacement of our county's voting system. As was previously presented to the Finance Committee, we believe that the purchase of a new voting system should be considered as a possible purchase using federal funds, whether from the county's existing CARES Act allocation or any additional money that we may have currently going on with negotiations in Washington. As the availability of any such funds becomes more clear later in the year, I would look to engage with the committee in a discussion regarding our options on how best to address the need to upgrade our voting equipment. Meanwhile, our office will continue moving forward on both the administration of the ongoing election as well as the fulfillment of the county clerk's many other statutory duties. For the county clerk's non-election accounting units, all budget requests are flat with where they have been for the last several years, with the exception of a requested 2% cost of living increase for employee salaries. As described previously, my staff has provided exceptional service to the people under incredibly difficult circumstances over the past year, and I hope that the board will be able to provide our office with the necessary funding to maintain the service levels the residents of DuPage County have come to expect. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have. And I'm
Thank you.
joined by my chief deputy and my 2 deputy clerks to provide additional specifics when needed.
Okay, Member Krajewski, then Member Chalsky, then Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Gene, and thank you for the presentation regarding the budget. I just have more of a high-level question to understand, your budget, and you know your budget a lot better than I do because it's this information. But you mentioned that the budget this year requesting $5 million versus whatever whatever, last year's approved one at 5.9, about $800,000 decrease from last year. When I look back, because this is an upcoming year, 2021, it's a April election, consolidated municipal election, which is always a lot, the lowest voter turnout. And, if I look back at the historical numbers that were given to us here, in 2017 and 2019, when we also had those consolidated village municipal elections, the budget decreases were about 1.4 million from the prior year approved budget.
Yes.
So, you're about $600,000 more, or less of a decrease than those municipal ones in 17 and 19. And then when I look at just drilling down to the one line item, which is the statutory and fiscal charges, I assume that's for the election. In the 17 and 19 budgets, they were roughly around $500,000 that were approved, and the actual came in around there too. Your request is 1.2 million, or about that $600,000 or $700,000 more than what we saw in 17 and 19. And maybe we need to spend a lot more, I don't know, but that seems to be everything else in the budget fine, but it seems that that's 600, 700,000 more that we spent, that we're asking for in 17 and 19. Maybe it's needed. But as we're facing these challenging times and we ask for a 10%, 20%, 30%, or staff did walk down, the walk down was to 30% was just reducing the 1.2 million to 300,000. I'm not sure if you could carry on an election with 300,000. Maybe you can, and we did it for 500,000 in 17 and 19. But that's my question, just understanding that. Otherwise, the rest of the budget seems fine. But maybe you could touch a little more on why it's 1.2. And then could you even do anything for 300,000 if we have to walk it down 30%? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Member Krajewski. We went into this budget preparation with a very big question mark for 2021. SB 1863 addresses 2020, but it has nothing for 2021. We don't know if we're going to be getting any additional funding, but we do know for sure that COVID will still be continuing. And the expenses for PPE and the extra amount that spending for a vote by mail expansion is a very large expense. We really don't know what to say about that. We don't know what the future holds. And so we're just trying to prepare you for what may happen. And then another big part of the increase is pay for election judges. And again, if we have COVID, which I believe we will in April, we're going to continue having to pay extra money to those election judges. But they are overdue for an increase in pay.
Yeah, my big question is that, and if it costs 1.2 million, but we have to take a 30% reduction in budget, you reduce that number to 300,000 and didn't cut 30% anywhere else. I'm not sure how you can do it. I don't even know if we could carry on an election with 300,000. We would have to cut the 30% somewhere else. I mean, I think if you're going to give us a 30% reduction, hopefully we don't have to do that. But I'm not sure you could take it out of the. If it's going to cost us 1.2 million to carry on an election, 1,000. If we have to reduce it, I think you're going to have to reduce it somewhere else. And then maybe we've only put the 500,000 or 600,000 in that line item, and then when we see what happens next year, I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but that just seems to be. Otherwise, the rest of your budget's fine. I'm just wrestling with it's so much more, and maybe it will be because of COVID. But if we have to do a 30% reduction, we took 900,000 out of it. We took a 70 or 80% reduction in the election line item, and everything else seemed to see the same. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Puchalski.
Gene, thank you. Nice presentation. I share your concern with the voting system that we have now, and I would welcome discussing that and upgrading. And my question is, this is going to be a very huge election, And is this system going to be workable? And I'm also concerned with election judges because my precinct used to have 6 and we have 2. And they were concerned with the issues of equipment and things like that. So I know vote by mail is a big push by everything, but is our voting system going to be able to handle, and do we have election judges going to be trained to take on an election that could have substantial?
Member Krajewski, I'm sorry,
I
Pachowski, sorry.
apologize for the lie.
Okay. I just wanted to say that, yes, our equipment is old and it's time to look for some new equipment. And we have been looking at other equipment over recent months. But when we looked at possible solutions for 2020, the risk was just too high. We could not bring in a new voting system for an election this big during a pandemic.
What's going to happen with election judges? Are we still so many hundred? The numbers I hear are staggering. How limited we are with election judges. Is there something we need to do to increase that number, or are you satisfied that we'll have enough election judges in light of the pandemic?
Well, we could always use more election judges, but right now the number is pretty good in terms of the number of active judges. We could use more though. And I think that paying them more, as we intend to do for 2020, is going to make some difference.
I think we have.
Member Chaplin.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Pay. And I can imagine with COVID, it's, going to be difficult to get more judges. So I know that increase for their pay is probably very necessary to get judges, especially during COVID. And I hope that, we can find some way to do that, because the election is one of the most important things that we do. Yeah, I think you're wise to prepare for the 2021 election, and that we're going to be still dealing with COVID. And I hope that we're able to get more funding. But if not, the election has to be, I believe, a priority for the board. But again, thank you for all your good work. Just like the treasurer, we have, you ladies are doing a wonderful job. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Member Chaplin. As we were doing some house cleaning in recent months, we came across a memo that the Election Commission had presented to the board asking for election judge pay increases. And at that time, the election judges were paid at the same rate as they are now. And that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? Member DeCiani. And then Member Zay.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Clerk Ismeric. I have, are you going to be clerking for the county board meeting today, or is Adam going to be handling? I had a question for you that was unrelated to this budget, but
I do have a scheduled Zoom meeting with the ISBOE for election authorities.
Okay, so I'll ask the question now. Then, if you were going to be here, then I would ask it later. But I noticed on vote by mail, we originally were going to go with folks who had voted in the last election of either 18 or 16, and then your office made the decision to mail everyone that was registered. And I pointedly asked the question about scrubbing the list against NCOA, National Change of Address, and also the list of deceased folks. And I got a call from a constituent of mine who actually is the grandson of his grandmother, who's been deceased since 2015. Her name is Ruth Simon. She lives at 1 South 485 MacArthur in Oak Brook Terrace in District 2. He received a vote by mail application for his grandmother, again, who's been deceased and hasn't voted in 16 or 18. I then asked Adam Johnson what was sent out in the last mailing. It was roughly, I believe, 665,000 mailers were sent out. What was the average cost of that mailer with postage?
38.3 cents.
Okay. So the L2, which is a national bipartisan procurement of data for voter files, shows DuPage County at 604,373. That's scrubbed against the NCOA and also the deceased list. So my concern is you've got roughly 65,000 that were sent out in addition that either do not live in DuPage County anymore or are potentially deceased. How are you going to control these checks and balances given that situation?
Well,
I'm just concerned about potential fraud, excessive spending of money and potential fraud.
well, Member DeCiani, our voter registration number right now is 617,000, and it has been for about the past month or so. And according to SB 1863, we were supposed to send out duplicate applications to the addresses where that voter had received a vote by mail application or ballot in the past. And so we did anticipate that there would be some duplication with 1863. But due to some data entry differences in the voter registration and vote by mail data sets, some voters received more than one application.
I can understand that, but for a person who's deceased, was the current list not scrubbed against the NCOA or the deceased list? I was guaranteed it would be.
Well, we maintain our lists. We do use those two fields to maintain our lists as well, but it doesn't catch everything, not 100%.
65,000 didn't catch.
Well, we already knew that there would be duplicates in that because it was mandated in SB 1863 to send out duplicates. So we figured, we looked at that and we looked at how many people might have moved or had multiple addresses over the past 4 years. And that didn't seem like too high of a number.
Interesting. Okay. I asked the pointed question because I was concerned about sending an application to every registered voter and knowing that the voter logs are not scrubbed. If it would in fact be scrubbed, and I was told by Adam it would be.
Well,
I can understand a duplicate going to, say, a voter's address, like somebody that's actually there, like my son or my daughter or whatever, but to go to somebody who hasn't voted in any election since 2015 and is deceased, I don't understand your answer to that.
Last year, we did do a complete voter verification. That was a high priority of mine. We had not done one in 10 years in DuPage County. And the voter registration list of active voters was reduced by 47,000. And I mean, I don't know specifically what to say about that person, but we can look into it and see if our office has ever received a notification to remove her.
Very good. I asked the questions. I was concerned naturally. I want to make sure our elections are of the highest integrity. I don't want to spend extra money in postage and printing that we don't need to spend money on. And I just think we have 65,000 applications that were sent out to people that are no longer there or deceased, and that's a huge problem. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member DeCiani. Let me just follow up on one question with that, then I'll get the members A. We've had a lot of questions about SB 1863 and its obligations. I've had a number of constituents complain that they've received multiple applications for multiple ballot applications. You're saying that the state law, which first of all, cherry-picked 2 elections, 2018 and 2019, as the basis for their distribution, and I appreciate your Madam Clerk being willing to distribute to all voters so that nobody was disenfranchised by this process. But you're saying that the state mandated that duplicates be sent out to the same voter at the same home? Go ahead.
Microphone.
It says in this bill that the application and notice required by this section shall be mailed to the elector's registered address and any other mailing address the election authority may have on file, including a mailing address to which a prior vote by mail ballot was mailed. So anybody who got a vote by mail, because I had constituents call me with like daughters who got a vote by mail at mom's house, and inside it, it actually had the daughter's new address in their new town where they're registered at. And they had to mail it out to an old address. So if you moved in the last 3 years to another address registered to vote, they were required to mail it to an old address that an absentee ballot was sent, either a prior address the election commission had on file or a prior vote by mail ballot.
Well, but my concern,
So that's double. I mean, anybody who moved and voted absentee got at least 2 in this county.
I understand, and I'm obviously concerned about that, but to my question, the clerk,
A point of order, sir, Chairman, point of order. If you would like to enter the debate, Chairman, you must, according to Robert's Rules of Order, you must, if the presiding officer is a member of the society, he has, as an individual, of course, the same rights in debate as any other member, but the impartiality required of the chair in an assembly precludes his exercising these rights while he is presiding. So you must call upon somebody else to preside if you would like to join the debate.
out of rules, thank you. All right. So in following up my question, I'm aware of people who've received multiple ballot applications with the same information, the same address.
Oh, so we're not following Robert's rules.
You're out of order, Member Dessart. We allowed you to speak. You're incorrect about the board rules. We're not going to have just shouting over people here. So stay in order, please. If you can answer my question.
I'm not sure. Would you restate it again?
Are you saying that the state law mandated that people receive multiple ballot applications at the same address with the same information, recognizing that the ballot applications had pre-filled out information for individual voters on them?
We would have to see those applications, but even if there was a subtle difference, if, for example, street was spelled out and there was an abbreviation for street, the computer would see that as 2 different addresses. And so in the off season after this election, our staff is going to be going through that list and making sure that all of those duplicates of very similar addresses are out of there. I want a clean voter registration database.
Sure, because obviously we want to make sure that when those applications come in, they're from the people that they were intended to be from, so that they don't get a ballot or get multiple ballots for the same vote.
Only 1 ballot will be sent out.
Okay. I believe Member Zay, and then Member Elliott, or Member Selman, then Member Elliott. And then Member.
Madam Clerk, just 2 items that jumped out on your budget. First one was postage, and second one was software licenses. You have software licenses at $480,000, and you have your postage obviously going up, but it's only 1 election, and it's a municipal. So I just wondered why the huge 480,000 is a very large number. Okay, yeah, the poll books, but in the agreement, the maintenance on it's 135,000. So where's the other $345,000 going?
If we're going to comment when they jump the mic, or we can't pick up what's being said.
I think the agreement says it's 135,000 for software maintenance for the poll books.
I can go get the poll book agreement between meetings, because that's where the software.
You can get to me anytime, right? I mean, I don't need it for a meeting. We're not approving anything, but that's one question.
The increase in that is the poll book license. So I can go get exactly where those numbers came from.
Okay. And then the postage, just because obviously we know, what's going on now, but next year, this is next year's budget. Why is there another increase in postage for a municipal election?
Well, that goes to the point the clerk made about how we are having to plan for some level of COVID mitigation and vote by mail expansion carrying over into the spring relative to past elections without knowing, like in this case where we're going to have any supplemental federal funding to cover any of that. So, in some sense, that's a placeholder, knowing that there will probably be more postage expenses required this spring than a previous consolidated election. But I mean, who can tell you right now, 6 months from now, will everyone be voting by mail in the consolidated election? Will the state give us another requirement to mail out vote by mail applications for the consolidated election? So, that it's a best estimate given everything that's floating around at the moment.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but again, tough budget year, placeholders are tough to have there. especially when
Absolutely,
things are tough, so-
absolutely, and it's also tough to be sitting and watching the federal government ranging between we might be giving $4 billion of additional election funding out to the states to we're giving zero, and those are pretty big variables to try to plan around as well. So.
Right. And then if I could, just another question on the vote by mail. We had talked, I continue to get phone calls from seniors, emails, and it was in the paper. It was a nice application, but a lot of people, especially seniors, are worried about their personal information being so readily available on this application. Is there any thought of doing something else here because of that? I know it's hard. I can play you the message. The poor woman's like, you have my phone number, or my address, my phone number, my date of birth, my signature.
Right.
And then on the box here, it says, if you want your ballot mailed to a different, location, they're just kind of scared. Is there something that you can do to maybe promote more coming online and doing?
Well, we're
it?
absolutely, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We did get that format approved by the state, before sending it out. However,
Well, that's probably your first mistake.
Right. but however, we have heard those concerns, and the two things we tell people is you still can obviously put it in an envelope if you're uncomfortable with that being exposed. But more importantly, you got to the exact solution there. Is we are encouraging people to register online as much as possible.
So you're okay if other people say, you know what, if you're concerned, please stick it in an envelope, mail it, pay for the
I'd
postage.
encourage you to say that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Member Selman, then Member Elliott, and then Member Ozog and Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. Very briefly back to the vote by mail applications. So I think Member Zay sort of touched on it. You do have to sign the back. So even if applications are going, so I'm sure one was sent for me to my old address in Elmhurst as well as here in Addison. You still have to sign it. And I've actually had ballots rejected in DuPage County for the signature not matching. When I was an absentee voter, when I was in college, I had to get it notarized to say, yep, that was me casting that ballot. So maybe this isn't as concerning just because I have worked with mail lists and half good data many times in my career. So the duplicate thing makes perfect sense. I think it's important to remember there's the additional check of your signature has to match your voter registration. And our county in the past has rejected when those signatures don't match. So there's a few other layers besides just getting that application. Is that correct, Jean?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Member Elliott.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I'm a bit frustrated by a lot of this discussion because we're here for a budget discussion. And I think we've been going with the clerk for a little bit over half an hour. And by my count, about 5 or 6 minutes of that has actually had anything to do with the budget. So if we can, I would like to get back to the budget. And, I will say, Madam Clerk, I'm troubled by the ask, and I'll tell you why. I have looked back going many years for the Election Commission's financials. I've looked at the clerks in other counties going back many years over their financials. And what I see is a tremendous oscillation between even and odd years. And that makes sense, right? Because in an even year, you've got 2 elections. There's state elections or federal elections. You've got a primary and you've got a general election. And in the odd years, you have a municipal election, which is always a much lower turnout event. And there's only one of them. And so I see that tremendous oscillation. When we consolidated the Election Commission into your office, the idea was to have a cost savings. My concern is that in the first year that you came to us, you proposed a budget number that was off the charts in terms of what it has historically cost to run an election in DuPage County and what is was off the charts compared to what it has cost to run elections in other counties that you have identified as comparable counties, specifically Kane and Will. At the time, you explained to us that that was because there was a tremendous need to update the clerk's office and the equipment. The poll books were something that you made a request for, which you gave you. You also identified this 2020 as a year that was going to have the greatest turnout ever. And that was something that was consistent throughout your budget presentations last year. We believed you, and we gave you a number that was enormous compared to what it has cost to run previous elections in DuPage County. Your office faced a tremendous number of challenges this year, and we are very cognizant of that. And we've approved additional funding. I would expect there to be, though, a very, very steep decrease for next year. But even at the decrease that you've proposed, which looks like a large decrease because it's coming off the largest ask ever, it's not nearly as low as we have seen in previous years from the election commission's previous odd numbered years. And I'm really troubled by that. And I'm trying to get my arms around that, because going from 2 elections in what you have said will be the largest turnout ever in DuPage County to 1 municipal election, it seems like there ought to be a much more precipitous drop in the elections budget. And I think you've made it clear this does not even include the request, which has been sort of out there for a while, for updated equipment. So I guess that's my overall reaction to this. But I will ask you, is there a benchmark that you think that your office should be judged by in terms of election accountability? Is there a dollar amount per voter that an election should cost? Is there any kind of benchmark that is out there? Because I found some in my research. Is there any benchmark that you would say, hold me accountable to this nationally recognized benchmark or this regionally recognized benchmark for how much an election should cost?
Member Elliott, I would like to see that research, and I would like to talk to you more in depth about your question. I will say this, though. When I walked down to the election division for the first time about 20 months ago, I couldn't believe it. Everything needed to be replaced. And the morale was very low. And we have this big checklist that we have been checking off to improve that election division and make it state of the art. We just yesterday got our new mail sorter, and the staff was in tears. That's how excited they were. And they were hugging me, this is pre-COVID time. They were hugging me when we got new photocopiers. And so I invite you to meet with and go over your research and see where we have been, what I inherited and where we want to go.
So, Madam Clerk, respectfully, I'm happy to tell you what my research is. My research comes from MIT, which has aggregated data from 26 different states, including every county in New York State. And it's indicated that an election ought to cost about $8.10 a voter. Now, that may be outdated, certainly with COVID. And so I recognize that that is a benchmark that might not be a perfect benchmark. But my question is to you. I'm really asking you. You've been in your post now for close to 2 years. As someone who runs elections and was a watchdog for elections, as someone who's been managing the office for 2 years, do you have in mind today, as you present this budget to us, what is the benchmark by which we should judge the efficiency or hold your office accountable for with respect to an election? Is there a benchmark that you have that you use or not?
Member Elliott, I was not prepared to answer that question. I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that more closely.
Well, I'm just asking, whether you're prepared today or not, is when you prepare your budget, is there anything that you use? I mean, last year you came to us and you said that you wanted comparable spending to what was in Kane and Will County. You identified those specifically as counties that you wanted to be comparable to. I'm just asking you, because you're the one who's prepared this budget today. You're the one who's come to us and said, this is what I need. Have you made any effort to look out across the country or the region and compare your spend to other places? Is there any benchmark that you have looked at in preparing this budget to assess whether these are reasonable in terms of what it costs the rest of the United States to conduct an election?
Well, I have visited about maybe 10, 12 county clerk's offices around the state. And one thing that I have noticed again and again is that they were not at the same level that we were. They were, yes, maybe they are spending less per year, but everything in their office is newer.
Okay, I respectfully, is the answer no? You don't have like some sort of benchmark or that you've used in putting together your budget?
There are no benchmarks in times of COVID.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Member Ozog, member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to make the point here that this appears to be, rather than a questioning, a little bit more of an interrogation of Clerk Kazmarek. Where was the request for benchmarks when the public defender and Mr. Berlin's budgets were presented? This really seems like it's gone far into, as I said, an interrogation versus questioning about the budget, because as Ms. Kazmarek just mentioned, we are in the time of COVID. She's going to possibly double the election judge pay so we can get election judges. And I would offer that our election process is as important, perhaps, as public defender and our attorney general's responsibilities. We have about 5 extremely essential functions, and this is indeed one of them, especially this year. So I would like to commend Ms. Kazmarek, and other questions, benchmarks, et cetera, can be brought up at a different time, but I want to thank her for what she's done here, and I appreciate her. Thank you.
Chaplain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Larson. Yeah, and I just like to make a couple comments as well. I think, and maybe I'm not articulating this correctly, but when Member Kazmarek took over the Election Commission, there was a lot of work and updates that needed to be done. The Election Commission was in disarray, and she's done an excellent job at trying to bring it up to where it needs to be, and I believe she's still working on that. And secondly, with these vote by mail questions, I have not received one question from any constituent about vote by mail. So I don't know where all these concerns and questions are coming from, but I am aware that the Illinois Republican Party has a lawsuit against the vote by mail, and that they are calling it a political scam to rig the election. So I'm just saying, I don't know where all these, because I have not received one phone call, one email. You can go through my emails. There's nothing that I've heard from any constituent.
So you're suggesting that you believe your fellow board members are lying?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just reading an article from the Daily Herald that came up yesterday. I think it goes along with the national campaign that, vote by mail is, not secure and it's dangerous and it's a democratic scam. And I think that our focus should be that, you know, we want to have good, secure, safe elections for everyone, and that it is a priority for this board to make sure that that happens.
Well, we're hoping to depoliticize the process and ask legitimate questions about the budget. So with that, Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Jean, you're in your team. You work overtime to protect voting integrity and security. And you know what? I really appreciate that. I mean, we really are in a time where you've been asked to do things in your office that have never been asked. So in terms of benchmarking, we really have to look at the job that you're being asked to do. My understanding is, in reading that 1863, you basically have to set up a whole system. In addition, you have to run a regular election, and you have to, you know, on Johnny on the spot, set up a vote by mail system that's maybe 10 times bigger than we've ever had before. I mean, my understanding is we're not a vote by mail state. So in essence, it's almost like you're having to run 2 elections at one time. You know, I thank you for the work you've done. I think, you know, we look at contingencies when it comes to how our taxes were going to be collected. I think we need to look when it comes to our elections and make sure that we are funding them appropriately. So when it does come, the municipal election next year, you know, I don't think we want to be caught with not having funding to make sure that that happens in a safe way. I got to say, I love the story of when everything was so dire and there was no hand sanitizer, and your staff going above and beyond to make sure that people could go in there when they were terrified to leave their homes to vote. So, I mean, you know what, that says a lot to me, and I thank you for your help. And you know, we can certainly keep talking about these numbers, but I think it's necessary. This is a critical function of our government.
Okay, I see Member Ozog has comments, but anybody who's not yet spoken have additional comments? Go ahead, Member Ozog.
Thank you. I'd also like to remind the board that I believe we're in the process of replacing a 40-year-old tax system, and perhaps we need to be thinking about keeping things up to date and looking at the type of situation that Ms. Kaczmarek walked into. She took over the Election Commission after holding her office for 8 weeks at the direction of this board. Many of us didn't feel that that was appropriate, and it should have not happened until the following year, but there we are. So we're looking at 40-year-old tax systems, outdated software, outdated systems, outdated equipment. So maybe we need to make sure that our focus is on staying current so that these systems can operate correctly. And again, I'll point out that our elections are one of our very most important functions. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one more question, Madam Clerk. I sent an email out about almost 2 weeks ago to you and to Scott McKay and to Cheryl Marquet about concerns regarding technology. Did you receive my email?
I'm sorry, I don't remember it.
Because it was specific to offering discussion, offering a special call meeting of the Finance Committee. Do you recall that?
I believe so.
Because I didn't get a response to that,
Okay.
and we're sort of being accused of politicizing the process. I specifically indicated I don't want to politicize the process. I don't care who gets credit. I'm happy to do this offline, happy to offer you an opportunity to present on the vote by mail system so that the public has more information about it. But I didn't receive a response, and that's concerning to me.
I apologize for that, Chairman Larson, and I will go and review it and get an answer to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any further questions or comments from the board? Member DeCiani.
Question I had was on the vote by mail. Is it possible to send out in one mailer 2 applications? Because most households have 2 people living in a household. And is it necessary to have them personalized, or can we send out just the application? And then my next question, if that is the case, 95% of our voters have a 4-member or less household. So we'd be able to save a lot of money that way if we were actually to send out 4 ballot applications in one mailer. That would save a tremendous amount of dollars, and also, be a lot more, I think, cost effective. Is that possible, or are you limited under the legislation, have to send them out individually and would have to be personalized?
This is one-time only legislation, so I don't know when or if it will come up again. but that's a valid point. Thank you.
So were you able to send out or like two or
According
three?
to this legislation, no.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask that question.
Right.
Then that's fine. I appreciate that. That answers my question. Thank you.
Member Hart.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and appreciate the presentation today. Real quick, I know you made mention of the fact that no request for updating the voting machines was made in this year's budget. I know we're in a pandemic right now. I know elections happen regardless of what goes on from a public health standpoint, but was any attempt made from your office to determine whether any component of a voting machine update, no matter how large or small, could be CARES Act eligible?
Yes, and one of the things that we have to deal with is the certification of the equipment. So we looked at several models of high-speed tabulators, for example, and that would have probably qualified for the CARES Act money. But unfortunately, it has to be integrated with the system that we have. And at this point, the State Board of Elections does not allow that.
So there was no way to request those because it doesn't integrate with the system right now.
Right.
Okay.
I think it was requested and the state wouldn't certify it.
Well, right. They have a history of not certifying such requests.
Okay. Any further questions, comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, board members.
All right, do we have any old business? Member Sark.
I just wanted to reiterate Robert's Rules of Order. It's on page 394. Rule against the chair's participation in debate. To participate in debate, he must relinquish the chair, and in such a case, he should turn the chair over. You can read more. It's a whole paragraph for yourself. Now, in the DuPage County Board rules, it says the rules of parliamentary procedure, as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order, shall govern the board in all cases. So if you have other information where you are allowed as chairman to enter debate, please send that to me in email. Thank you.
Member Zay.
It's not even worth commenting on.
All right, Member Hart.
I was just going to ask, I believe our county board rules supersede those. I was asking if the state's attorney can settle this matter and speak up on this.
Our state's attorney can comment on the issue.
Just on a parliamentary basis, this isn't debate, this is a presentation, and it's a question and answer period as of a presenter. A debate would be when you're debating the merits of something to be passed before the board. I would be inclined to think that if there was going to be some position by a chair, that if they thought they were going to be taking an active advocacy role, that they would conduct their duties either fairly and impartially or would ask someone that can. In this particular instance, there's no final action. There's no an action item. This is an informational presentation. And in my mind, at least, all county board members are equal in that. You all have the same statutory duties to your constituents to take care and provide for those sort of things. Again, and I'll also add, Robert's rules are designed to organize debate, and it's to organize discussion. It's to organize parliamentary process to prevent it from devolving into bedlam. It's not designed and should not be used in a fashion so as to stifle participation by any member of an assembly.
Thank you. And I would hope and assume people would agree. I've never denied people an opportunity to speak at this committee and allow full debate and discussion of these issues. Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Connor. I think, one thing I brought this up before, our county board rules say the county board shall elect from within its membership a county board member to serve as a county board parliamentarian. And we've not done that. And I think maybe we're getting to the point we should, because we keep deferring that role to our assistant state's attorney. And I think that is something that we hold within this body, the power to, advise on this issue. So I think, can we give this some thought? I think we keep chipping away at the things that we're allowed to do by this body, and having some parliamentary control is something one of our members is allowed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions, comments under old business? Anyone have any new business? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, we're adjourned.